What is up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be going over several tips and kind of the thought process I want to follow to hopefully help you get easier wins in Fortnite Chapter 6 Season 2. As always, if you guys do find this video to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below how many crown wins you have so far this season. The first piece of advice I have is going to be to either land at a vault POI or land around a vault POI. You don't need to land directly on it, but landing somewhere nearby can be really beneficial. The vault POIs are typically pretty populated and pretty contested, so some players are just going to want to avoid them entirely, and that's why I said maybe you land somewhere else and then go there. But I think being relevant in that vault fight is pretty helpful because the vaults themselves, not only do they have very good loot, but they also have the dill bits inside, and these dill bits are what is going to be used to purchase special loot at the black market locations, most notably the mythic pump shotgun. So I really like having the mythic pump. We'll get to that in a bit, but I think these vaults are definitely worth going for if you do want to get the mythic pump. I made a video a few days ago about some good low-key spots that I think can be pretty decent loot spots, but also get you decent timing on third-partying the vaults. So if that is something you're interested in, you're definitely going to want to check that video out. But like I said, I really like having and getting the mythic pump, and you can only get this from the Crime City black market, and you do need a dill bit to open that case to get it. And I think just not guaranteeing that you have, you know, the best shotgun in the game, but also if you get it, you're the only person in the lobby who has it. I think that gives you a pretty decent fighting advantage in most fights you'll get in. At least the more important fights in Fortnite tend to be, you know, close range fights. So I really like going after and getting that mythic pump. The black market is another thing that's going to be, you know, pretty risky to go for, and you may want to avoid if you're not comfortable fighting. But as I said, I think having that mythic pump is worth it. If you don't care to go for the mythic pump, then you can kind of also just ignore the vaults entirely. So if, like, I recommend going for that. I really like having that. But if you want to play a more passive and safe way and you don't really care that much about missing out on the mythic pump, then you also don't need to go for the vault as much, because the black markets themselves have good loot that you can buy just with gold bars. It's mainly the mythics and then certain legendary cases you need dill bits for. So if you don't care to get the mythic, which I think the mythic pump is the most important one, if you don't care to get that, then you can also just kind of ignore the vaults entirely and loot otherwise. The black markets themselves, I think, are very good and are worth going for. If you want more safe gameplay, the one outside Masked Meadows and the one outside Magic Mosses typically aren't as contested as the one at Crime City, because a lot of the more aggressive, active players in the lobby tend to want to get that mythic pump. So if you want a more relaxed playstyle, try to take advantage of the Magic Mosses or the one outside Masked Meadows. That way you can still at least get very, very good loot. And that's one of the reasons why low-key spots are very viable this season, because the amount of loot you get from your initial location doesn't matter as much. You could take that loot and go third-party a vault, or you can make your way to a black market and get good loot there. The fact that you can guarantee high rarity loot every game at the black market is very good, and I would highly recommend taking advantage of that. Some other things you might want to do during the mid-game is going to be to get an air sprite and put it in the shrines that are around the map. If you put an air sprite in the shrine, it will give you 4 shockwaves every single time, and this is really helpful because I think shockwaves are the best mobility item in the game right now, and this is a guaranteed way for you to get the best mobility item. You don't have to rely on looting or getting lucky. Take the air sprite to a shrine. Now you have your mobility set. You can also try to go get the infinite gold rush medallion. This is something that it kind of depends what playstyle you're on. If you want to avoid conflict more so, then maybe you don't want to get this medallion. But if you are a more aggressive player that's confident fighting, I would highly recommend getting this medallion, because having the infinite gold rush is really nice. It just makes moving around the map more enjoyable. But also you can use that sprint bash when dealing with people using the bats. And I really like taking advantage of that in close range fights. So I always go for that medallion and I always want to get it. Another thing that can be really helpful is going to be the forecast towers. These will spawn at second zone, and if you eliminate the guards at the tower and put the key card into the computer, you'll get to see where future zones are in the game, and this makes it easier for you to plan how you're going to move throughout the match and always kind of stay one step ahead of everyone. It's not the biggest deal in like the early to mid game, but once you get into end game, knowing where zone is going to be and putting yourself in the best spot to take advantage of that can be a huge advantage. So if you want to get wins a lot, getting the forecast tower can really help. This is something that I typically forego because I just want to fight people and get eliminations. But if you're on that more passive playstyle, getting the forecast tower, I think, really helps. As far as like inventory, what I want to carry this season, I typically just want to carry 2 weapons, and that is going to be either the Hollow Twister AR or Striker Burst, just depending on which one I get, which one I have a better version of. At this point, I feel like I'm leaning more and more towards the Striker Burst being my preferred, but if I have like a gray burst or a purple hollow, I'm probably going to take the purple hollow. Like, rarity is a factor for me with how good both of these ARs are. And then for my shotgun, I pretty much always want to use the Sentinel Pump. I don't really care for the Twin Fire Auto Shotgun. I would recommend carrying a shotgun. I see a lot of players say that they don't like having a shotgun or they feel that it's not necessary. But I feel like when you're fighting decent players in this game, the ability to play off of cover and deal a lot of damage while exposing yourself for a very limited amount of time, and the ability to play off movement with a pump is just much better than relying solely on a spray weapon. If you're only using the spray weapon or only using the bat in close range, those are often going to be fights that aren't as clean as using a pump. Like, the way you can play with a pump limits how much damage you're going to take in a fight, whereas using some of the other options, you're just trading damage with the enemy, and that makes it more problematic for you to get third-partied. So that's why I always recommend using a shotgun. And then also, I really like having 2 mobility items. This season, those are going to be shockwaves, and then typically the bat. Sometimes I will drop the bat, though, for the Sub-Zero gauntlets if I know that I'm going to be in an in-game zone where there's a lot of mountains and people are going to try to bat me off to take fall damage, because if you use the slide effect of the Sub-Zero gauntlets, you don't take fall damage. So hypothetically, if I see end-game zone is just all mountains, and then maybe I open a chest and there's Sub-Zero gauntlets there, or I eliminate somebody and they have the gauntlets, I may take them in that situation, but typically I'm just using shockwaves and the bat as my 2 mobility items. And then the final slot is going to be for heals. I actually prefer the Gold Rush splashes to anything else this season. I like having the Gold Rush effect. As I said, the bash is really nice. The fact that it improves the pickaxe trick if I'm playing against anybody using cars, which a lot of people do in Zero Build, I really like having the Gold Rush splashes. I will also carry the Chug Jug or Big Pots if that's what I have access to. A lot of times with heals, you don't always get to choose. I know you can buy the Gold Rush splashes at the Magic Moss's black market, but you know, once you get deeper into the game and maybe you've used your heals, you don't always have the choice of what you want. So if I had 2 splashes and a chug, I'll take the chug. If I had 3 big pots or a chug with 50 in it, I would take the big pots. It really depends on what you have access to as far as heals go. One of the main differences between this season and last season for me is that I pretty much never want to go for the island that spawns in at 4th zone. Last season, this island was a big deal because it had the Mythic Typhoon Blade and the invisibility medallion, which gave you unlimited stamina and made you invisible while sprinting. And that medallion was really, really good. But this season, the medallion on island is pretty trash. I wouldn't carry it if I could get it for free. And then the Mythic Hollow Twister AR that Shogun X drops is nice, and I would enjoy to have that. But I don't feel like going there and fighting Shogun X to get a slight rarity upgrade on AR is that big of a deal, especially with how easy it is to get good loot this season from the black markets. Like, if I already have a purple or gold AR, going to Mythic isn't that much of an upgrade to make killing Shogun X worth it, to me at least. The only time I really want to go to this island is if it seems like it's going to be in zone for a while. Sometimes this season it just spawns in the storm already. So it feels like endgame, the island is less relevant. But in matches where it is relevant in endgame, that's when I would go for it. And if I do go up there, I'm not really going to bother fighting Shogun X. I might just try to eliminate other players fighting him. But I mostly just ignore the island this season. And then typically, my approach throughout the course of the game is to get those important objectives like I talked about. I want to get a vault. I want to get the mythic pump. I want to get the medallion. And then I just want to run around and fight people. And the reason why I think getting eliminations throughout the course of the game is helpful is because you'll have less players alive towards the end of the match, which makes your end game a lot easier. But also you get rid of the better players earlier on. Like I talked about, a lot of the good players are going to the Crime City black market for the pump. If you eliminate that player there, or players there, because several people are going for it, you just made the rest of your match much easier because those better players are out of the lobby and you stopped them from getting the mythic pump potentially. You don't have to play against them when they have it. So that's kind of how I've always looked at the game. I think a lot of people view fighting as like you either have to play the most passive way possible or you have to play like the most aggro way possible and push everybody. There's definitely an in-between. It's not like you need to just push and chase everybody and make bad decisions. But also, I think playing somewhat aggressive and getting kills throughout the course of the game makes the rest of the match easier because you tend to run into the better players doing that. And you don't have way too many people left alive in the end game. One problem I think a lot of players seem to have, based on reading comments on my YouTube channel or Twitch or whatever, is that they play super passive throughout the course of the game. They just try to make it to end game and then hope to get lucky at the end, right? Or hope to get decent timing at the end. They don't really get in many fights throughout the course of the match. But what happens here is that there's way too many people left alive, and then the end game is just really chaotic and really random. And so they've played safe, but by playing very safe, they've made the rest of their match very hard. Like, I've gotten a lot of comments on from people saying like, wow, there's only 2 people left alive at the end here. My matches are like 15 to 20. And I think that's, one, very hyperbolic. That's not how public matches play. But also, the reason why my end games are so dead is because I'm eliminating people throughout the course of the game and making that end game much easier. So playing ultra passive is safer in a way, but I feel like also it can make the game harder. And I think getting in fights is obviously a risk, but as I said, playing too passive can also be a risk as well, or create potential problems. Like, maybe you fight several people in game, maybe you fight someone that's very stacked, that has the mythic pump, has the medallion, has all the great loot, while you kind of have sticks and stones, you know? I think getting in fights, it's always seen as a risk, but people don't see the downsides of playing passive. I think a nice middle ground of getting kills but also not playing dumb aggro is the ideal way if you do want to consistently get wins. And also, at the end of the day, if you want to consistently win in this game and consistently do well in this game, you're going to need to get good at fighting. Like, Fortnite is a PvP game at the end of the day, and getting better at that PvP aspect of it will make it easier for you to win and make it like more consistent for you to win. So I get it. If you just want one win, playing passive can help. But if you want to consistently win, I would highly recommend getting decent at fighting, getting comfortable fighting, getting used to fighting. And the only way that's going to happen is if you get in more fights throughout the course of the game. And if you, once you actually, you know, become a decent fighter and get comfortable fighting, I feel like that's when you're going to win a lot of matches. When it comes to endgame, you know, some just short pieces of advice. When we get into moving zones, getting to that new zone first and kind of holding the other players from getting in, usually going to make your match easier. Although, if you have way too many people left alive in the end game, you probably don't want to worry too much about that and just always play for your own safety. So when it does come to moving zones, try to get into the new area first if you can, or just, you know, early if you can, and try to worry more about positioning than just getting one kill. If there is several people left alive rotating, one kill is nice, sure, but if that just results in you getting third-partied or you getting held, that's not good. And a lot of in-game will come down to this. If it's like a 1v1v1, or, you know, if it's duos, 2v2v2, squads, 4v4v4, you know, if there's 3 parties left, usually the first 2 that are fighting just end up getting third-partied by the other one and then cleaned up. So try not to fight in endgame unless you can win that fight easily, quickly, and without taking much damage. If it's going to be a long, drawn-out fight, you're just setting yourself up for third parties. And always be aware of this. Like, keeping track of where people are in the end game and what areas you know are clear versus not clear can help you predict where those third parties are going to come from. And just always be of the mindset that you're going to get third partied in the end game and be ready to deal with that. Again, having that radio tower can help you position yourself in the better ways end game and make your match a lot easier. Another problem a lot of people are going to have this season is going to be the bat. You're probably like, how have you not talked about this? I made an entire video for tips for dealing with the bat yesterday. A video like this, just kind of going over, you know, my game plan for the match, what I want to do, what I want to carry, and how I want to play throughout the match. It's hard to cover every little detail one by one. So if you want a more detailed video for tips for dealing with the bat melee, that will be linked down in the description below, or you can just find it on my channel. If you guys did enjoy this, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.